another Within Reach podcast episode. I'm Crystal.
I'm Steph.
And I'm Roberta.
I'm excited for today. We're going to open up and go through all of our biggest mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like
Couple of them.
Yeah.
There is definitely a couple.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely a couple. And I think it's really important to share because I think a lot of people would probably see us on Instagram and think, oh, you know, we're perfect, we've done all this, done all that, but it's really important to share all the mistakes that we have learned.
Yeah, and I think
where we are.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, like even touching on towards the back end of the episode about some things that we notice are really prominent mistakes at the moment, which probably, to be honest, tie into a lot of the stuff we've been doing. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Who wants to start or their ones?
Crystal, you start.
Okay, amazing. Well, if we're going to go to like the start of my timeline of getting into health and fitness, if you've listened to previous episodes, you've already heard how many mistakes I've made. But very first one was starting out doing like HIIT training only, so high intensity interval training.
Yeah,
and
I've done that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and being like scared of the weights room because I thought it'd make me bulky.
Yeah, I definitely was caught in that trap as well. When I first started out, it was all just like body weight and functional movements.
same.
And I ventured into weights slowly, but it definitely hindered my progression timeline. Like it just kept everything stagnant.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could do weights until like 3 years into like starting doing like any sort of fitness regime or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize you could, like that was just not the information I was even surrounded by for so long.
Yeah, when I started to go to the gym, I was like, the functional space is for the girls and the weights room is for the boys.
Yeah, actually, that was a thing, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
really, really like a big thing then. I actually remember thinking that too.
I don't think there was a single girl. I went to a Crunch. That was my very first gym, and I remember that I was the only, for starters, I was the only girl in the gym for like months. I swear to God, I didn't see a single female. And like 3 months in, I finally saw someone. I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like there's like one girl in there, but like we would always like stick to like the corners. Like no one really wanted to go where the men were. Like they were all lifting their weights, and yeah, it's not even like that was scary. It was just like no one was there. I didn't realize it was a thing I could do.
Yeah, I think that still happens sometimes though now. I go to really busy gyms sometimes and I do see that there are still women that put themselves in corners. I mean, for example, Roberta and I went and did some content work at Anytime Fitness the other day, and there was a girl that specifically came over to the corner we were in and like utilized that corner.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
The one that you had to move your shoes.
Oh yes,
Because she went straight to the corner and she wouldn't move.
You're right.
Yeah, and I picked up on that straight away and I thought, oh, that's so
wow.
interesting that like the women still do go to the corners, and I think maybe not necessarily just women, but I think anyone who feels a little bit intimidated in the gym. And I know that it can be really scary, but the fact that we held ourselves back from going and doing the exercises we wanted to do to get to our goals because we were worried about other people being there. What I do love though is women in the gym and front row at the weight section is a lot more prominent now.
Yeah, I love that it's becoming more prominent, but like it is still very common. And I find it's like the minute I realize everybody's more concerned with themselves, not you.
Yeah.
So like nobody's looking at you in the gym. I still have to tell people that all the time. Like a lot of new clients that I work with, or even my friends, like females my age, they are too scared to go into the weights room. And so I say that line. I was like, nobody's looking at you. They're all too concerned with themselves. They're like, oh,
But they actually are. It's true.
yeah. Like if you do look at them, they're just looking at themselves in the mirror.
Yeah,
So.
that's literally what it is.
I am guilty.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I am too. That's why I'm realizing like I'm only looking at myself.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever like looked at anyone's work and been like I just don't care. Like I'm just so focused on me.
Or unless there's someone that's really good looking that walks in. Sorry, Jack, but you know, I can't help myself sometimes. Anyway, my first one is under eating. I feel like, well, you, Crystal, I know you've done that. Have you ever struggled with that, under eating?
I haven't. I'm pretty privileged to say that I have never experienced that.
Yeah, under eating is a massive one for me. Like I remember there were periods of time where I would limit myself and restrict myself so much because, and I mean, I've spoken about this so many times on the podcast, but you know, going back to when we were growing up and how the thigh gap was a trend and being as thin and as tiny as possible, and in magazines and on social media and just everywhere you looked, it was about how thin a woman was. And so we thought we had to be that. And then there were so many trends going around on just like ways that you should, quote unquote, eat. And I did fall into the trap of under consuming for quite a severe period of time. I lost a lot of weight over those periods, to the point where like one time, and I'm talking like as early as like 15, And I remember there was this one time where my dad actually commented on it and was like, "You're looking really thin." And I was just like, yeah. But that was because I was starting to uncover all, obviously, the, I guess, relationship with food issues that kind of came up later, but just consuming less and less and less as it was, and thinking that that was the way to go. You know, simple things. I remember back at school, I wouldn't even take lunch to school. And there were so many girls at school that didn't bring lunch and they didn't eat lunch, and they...
Really?
Yeah, there's so many girls. Like, I pretty much, not everyone I knew, but there was a lot of people that I knew that they wouldn't bring lunch to school and they wouldn't eat all day. And then they'd go home and like have dinner, and that would be it.
I'm so surprised. I went to a really small school. Like, there was like 50 people in my cohort. So there was not really much to like gauge on, like look at.
Yeah, I've had that. And I even had a client, she's not a client anymore, but she's a younger girl who's, I think she would have only just turned 18. And when she was working with me, she was 16, 17. And we actually had to devise her meal plan around having meals first thing in the morning before school and late at night after school. And I needed to try and fit her calories into those meals because I had to work with her for so long on relationship with self. She just refused to eat at school. She just said flat out, "Steph, I'm not going to do it." And I just thought, wow, like,
That's so sad.
that, yeah, it still happens these days. I genuinely think if you ask some of the teenage girls out there now, that it probably still happens a lot, where I had to be really like delicate in my approach around how to manage someone's nutrition and ensure they're getting enough food, even though they weren't going to eat throughout the day. And then that just comes back to other issues like, you know, fueling yourself properly, your energy levels, looking after your body, your hormones, and then, you know, if you are training, your performance. And it was just a massive thing that I learned, that I'm glad I learned it, but damn, I wish I didn't go through it.
Yeah, so that's one thing with the mistakes that we've made. It sucks, but also I wouldn't change any of them because each mistake I made taught me so much, and then I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't make those, because the reason I have become a coach is to save other people the mistakes, right?
Yeah, and also I guess like we say this all the time, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So then when you finally learn those things and you have those aha moments, it helps guide you to the next step where you're no longer making those mistakes. Because I guess that's the biggest loophole, right? Is you don't know it's a mistake until you go, oh, whoopsie.
Yeah, some people have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh, well, my nutrition mistake was the opposite of that. It was the overeating part, in the sense that, well, when I first started and I realized like that, hey, there are weights there that I can use and I can grow my glutes, which was like the big craze of like when I first started. It was like 2018. It was like Bodies by Rachel and I swear, it was just everything on my feed was like grow a booty, 6-week booty program. I think I bought like 20 of those. Like, I spent so much money buying those programs, never stuck to any of them. But all I knew is they would put like, in the thing, like, make sure you're eating in a surplus, but they would never explain what that means. And there was just so little information about, maybe it was in the sphere that I was in, like I didn't look too hard, but I just was struggling to find exactly what to eat. So all I ended up eating was, like I was telling you guys, I would eat like meat pies from 7-Eleven to get my calories in, because I didn't know what my maintenance was. I didn't know what a surplus was. So I was like, fuck, okay, I gotta eat, I gotta stuff my face. And I remember after every single gym session, I would go, there was a kebab shop nearby, I would get a massive kebab, like extra cheese, extra hummus, like I would get the most like greasiest meals, because I thought that this is how you would be. I don't know if anyone's gonna relate.
No. Do you know what's funny?
What was I
No,
doing?
but I actually can relate to this, because when I first started out in like fitness, and I just moved to Sydney and I was starting out in like working in a gym, and so I was very fresh to the fitness world, and I'd only just got my qualifications. Which, by the way, in your qualifications, they do not teach you about surplus and deficit. They skim on it, and you don't really know. Anyway, so what happened with me was I actually was. I had come out of that I want to be super, super thin era, and went from one extreme to the other. I went, well, I want to build, I want to grow, I want to have all this muscle mass, da, da, da. And so I was like, oh, cool, I'll enter a surplus. So for me, that actually similar happened, where I was structured, but it was poor structure. So I was tracking, and I started on what my maintenance was, which, you know, let's just say it was like 200, it probably was about that. And I just thought that you just got to keep eating more. So
did
I kid you not, I wish I was joking. Every week, I'd put them up 100 calories.
Oh.
Every week, I'd go up 100, up 100, up 100. And I ended up at like 3,000 or just over 3,000 calories. And I was I have photos of this I could show you. I went from like 61, 62 kilos. I was like 70 kilos. And I remember distinctly, I actually remember exactly what I was wearing. I was on my story on Instagram and I was like boasting to everyone about how I'm in this surplus and how I'm like training really hard. And mind you, like I was. And I distinctly remember I was wearing like my Muscle Nation gear and I had my hair in this big bun and I was like, my face was like, you could just tell that it was not okay. And I remember saying on my story, you know, like, I'm eating 3,000 calories now and I'm currently sitting at 68 kilos. I'm really hoping I can push it to 70 in the next 2 weeks.
I've done this same
thing. Genuinely. And I'm like, I really hope I can just push it up to 70. And I was like, it was so strange because I went from, you know, I have to be as small as possible to all of a sudden I wanted to push 70 kilos. Yeah. And I thought that was me like bulking.
Yeah, I had a figure of it was like 55 kilos. That's the goal, and I got there, but it was just like
it was all body fat.
Yeah, it was all body fat, and I gained 6 kilos of unnecessary body fat that was not necessary. And on top of that, like it's less the scale weight. I just felt like shit. Like meat pies, kebabs, and I remember another thing I would do. I would have a protein shake, and like if I counted these calories now, there'd be like 1,000 calories in this one protein shake. I would put like 2 tablespoons of coconut oil because I wanted to bump out like. Oh my gosh. Damn. Like I wanted to bump up the calories so much. This thing tasted disgusting. And I would drink it like it was like a holy water.
So you're like me, like shoveling food down at 8 p.m. even though you weren't hungry, which by the way, if you're in a surplus to a degree that does happen, but not we're going up 100 calories every week.
No. And you have to do it smart. There's just
you put on
with
so
some
much
guidance.
Yeah.
I had no guidance.
Because you have to you have to try and lose all of the unnecessary body fat you gained.
At that point, I didn't even I was still doing my arts degree, that psychology degree after, and I was just doing God knows what. I had no coach, had no idea what I was doing. So,
this is so interesting to me because I've never been in that mentality.
It happens.
Wow.
So to me, the other one is the interesting one because I had never been in that mentality. So it's all just different.
I've done a bit of both.
Did it both. We're gonna try. Yeah, experimentalists we are.
Yes. Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. The second point I had was going vegan without knowing about protein, and like the reason I went vegan was for watching the What the Health documentary when I was 16 or 16, 7. Yeah, would it 15? I don't know. I was young, no idea about calories, food, nutrition. So I think that was probably also about the time where I was like carbs are bad as well. So I was just saying this to Robbo before. I remember specifically like I would have an apple for breakfast, a carrot with some peanut butter at lunchtime, and then like whatever mum was having for dinner, but I wouldn't eat the meat.
Can we just stop for a second? A carrot and peanut butter.
Yeah, it's delicious.
What?
Yeah.
I thought you, in my head, I was like carrot and hummus, and then you said it, I was like, hang on.
Yeah, no, have you guys
Let's
ever
rewind.
tried it?
No.
Like, because I used to work at this cafe, and I love peanut butter.
Can't.
And
You can't peanut.
I think that alone is a fitness mistake.
No, it's actually really good.
Okay.
I still would sometimes eat it as a snack. But
Anyway, each to their own.
The point of this story was I would eat like minimal and I'd avoid fat, avoid carbs, avoid meat, dairy. So I lost a lot of weight. Like I got down to like 60, 62 kilos. And for me, like right now I'm like 75.
Well, yeah, I was going to say for your height, that's like really like low weight.
Very, yeah. I don't know if you remember seeing like one of the first reels I made of like me, younger me, just trying to be as skinny as possible. Like that was the goal back then. And then I just remember being like super lightheaded all of the time and no energy, got a blood test and like was anemic for like low iron and stuff. So then I started to then I learned about protein and I was eating tofu and like lentils and stuff, but I still had such low energy. So then started eating meat again.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Mine wasn't, like I personally didn't go vegan. You went vegan though, didn't you?
I did, yeah, but it was only for 3 months, and it was for that. I swear to God, I watched the same documentary.
Probably.
Yeah, and it's like I didn't feel it was just a little bit time consuming, and
I went paleo for a while.
What is paleo?
So paleo diet is when you basically eat nothing that the earth doesn't provide. So it's like meats, grains, nuts and seeds, fruit and veg.
So no pasta, no rice.
No, yeah, and nothing like that. And like you wouldn't have anything that's got that's man-made or got
I remember
those.
looking into that and you couldn't have peanut butter. So I was
Yeah.
Can't have the carrots and peanut butter.
But yeah, so I went paleo for a while, and it's because one of my favorite fitness influencers at the time was paleo, and it was like all over her YouTube. And if you know, you know. And yeah, so she was paleo, but like I then wanted to be so much like her because I just loved her. And to be honest with you, she was like a role model for me when I was around the age of 16 through to about, I'm going to say like 19, 20. I was like obsessed, and I would watch every YouTube video she put out, and I would just want to be her. So I went paleo too because I thought, hey, why not? And to be honest with you, like not so much of a mistake in the sense that it was like necessarily bad for me, because I actually don't think paleo diets are bad. I think they're just super clean and you still get all of your nutrients from them, but it was just unnecessary. That's all. Like I was cutting out like dairy when I didn't need to, and I was only eating clean, and I was just not giving myself any flexibility. And so I, you know, wouldn't go out and eat with family and friends because nothing was paleo. Everything was, you know, and it was just very unnecessary. So I was probably quite healthy, but it was like, what was the purpose of that? Just for the sake of it. It was silly.
Yeah. I guess that point is like just doing something because someone else is doing it.
Yeah. That is a mistake.
Yes.
So mine, I actually had eating in a surplus and not understanding it, but we've touched on that. My next one was I used to train legs every day. So
I said I can't.
And
relate
again,
to that.
I feel like some women particularly will get this, because I've seen this time and time again where you don't want to get quote unquote bulky. So you don't train upper body and you just want to train legs because you think that's going to grow your glutes and like grow your legs. And, you know, I noticed particularly again through working with so many clients over the years of different ages, there just seems to be, I don't know if it still happens, but at that point in time, there was a huge amount of like young girls around, again, that's 16 to 18 who are just fresh in the gym and all they wanted was like a really good lower body. So they would do like glutes and abs and that would be it. So I used to train lower body in the beginning, like pretty much every single day. Or if I didn't, it wasn't every day, but I just wasn't doing upper body at all. And I would just thrash my legs, thrash my quads, my glutes, and just assume that that was going to get me results.
I did that, but I didn't do every day because I don't like doing legs. But I did do 3. Like I would consistently do 3 leg days a week, and like you said, I would just thrash my legs. My legs were so sore, and then I think I just tried to do a bit of abs. I did some little ab circuits I saw on Instagram. But yes, all I would do was legs, and I don't think I touched any upper body equipment till like maybe 2 years ago.
And it does happen. It happens quite frequently.
Yeah. I was too scared of doing weights in general when I was younger. So, and then got into like the whole like 1RMs thing. But I guess for me, my workouts were just random.
Well, that's
so
another
random.
point in itself, right?
Yeah.
I did that too. Like I'd go through stages where I would just like put together my own random workout and then the next day it'd be something completely different, and there was just no flow at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like no structure, I guess.
Yeah, that was my one. Was I just went and I just did no structured workouts. I did the same thing. I just found out you could do 8 reps and that would grow your glutes. So I would just hit like 8 reps for all of my shit. And I just never changed the structure, never changed exercise selection. There was no like single leg stuff. It was just like it's just the same thing every single time.
Yeah.
And obviously I wasn't seeing progression because of that.
Yeah, and there's two routes you go down here, right? There's like the people who change things too often, don't have any structure, don't have any progressive overload, and therefore are just doing random workouts. And like you guys have heard me say before, random workouts equals random results, and it's true. So we have people on one end of the scale that do that, and then on the other end of the scale, we have people who do not change their workouts ever and don't push themselves. So they're constantly going to the gym every single week. 8 reps of a leg press, 60 kilos, 8 reps of a hip thrust, 50 kilos, and they just don't progress. I don't think either is better than the other. I think they're both just as bad as each other, because you're one end of the scale not seeing progress, or the other end still not seeing progress.
Yeah. And on top of the one end of the scale, you know how you were saying like 50 kilos, 60 kilos, same thing every time. There's also, we were talking about ego lifting as well.
Oh, yeah.
And how, like just putting on the weight that your body can't move it. So you start using poor technique, and that just gives you not the results that you're wanting anyways.
Yeah, definitely a training mistake. I think on all parts, we've probably all gone.
I
feel like though you have to graduate from that. I feel like everybody comes into it with poor form because you don't know how to move your body.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's almost it's almost something you have to graduate from and kind of.
My mistake was thinking that the problem was that I thought I had good form.
Oh yeah,
and that's where I started.
too.
I was telling you before, I was doing these deadlifts, and I have a video of these, and I was like, yeah, like this is me. Like I know exactly what I'm doing. It was like a mix of a sumo stance, an RDL, and a conventional in one. Like how does that happen? My legs were out to the side, and it was just the most ridiculous thing. And I had like 100 kilos on there.
Yeah.
Like how does that happen?
Yeah, that's like me. I was at the front of the gym, and so like the gym that I trained at was a huge open floor gym. This was at Marsden Park, and so over at the front was the deadlift platforms, and so I would load the bar up. Once again, it was like 100 kilos. I could hardly lift it, and I would be like rounded as they come, and I would be just like, and I would do the thing as well with deadlifts where, and I see people do this sometimes, where you'll be grabbing onto the bar, but just before you lift it, rather than taking the slack out of the bar, you like do this, and like for those of you at home that cannot see me right now, I'm like bending my elbows and then trying to like create my own momentum to push up from, and then you do that, which is like you're almost like jumping it, trying to get the bar up, plus doing it rounded, and I would be doing it with my fingerless gloves.
Yes, we were talking about that.
I would be doing it with my hair in. Fuck. A mistake I made just in life was I used to have a ponytail extension, and I thought that I looked so good in it. So it was like platinum blonde, and like every time I went to the gym, I had to put my ponytail extension in. So you can just picture me like this young 19-year-old girl who's like no idea what she's doing, trying to lift 100 kilos with poor form with her gloves and her ponytail extension.
Yeah, I had that, not the ponytail extension, but I had the booty band on. Like, no matter what exercise I did, I was like, fuck yeah, like everyone's releasing all these booty bands. I was like, yes, let's get on top of that.
Yeah, like the booty band on the stepper.
Yeah, I never did that. But I saw it.
Where they do the step and then they kick, step and then kick. Yeah. And it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I was one of those. As
the good days.
Is it my turn for points again? So as like a combination of what I've kind of already spoke about for the first half marathon, didn't have any structure, so didn't follow a program. I was doing the same 5K, same 13K loop every single week. As for my resistance training, wasn't really resistance. It was like HIIT training, the Gaelic science workouts. And then also being like looking at too much information online and just I didn't know how to eat either. So there was a whole combination of mistakes in that first half marathon.
Yeah, I feel like that you would have felt that.
Yeah. I remember. I also thought like resting was bad.
Oh yeah, actually, that's a really great one. People do think like the more that you rest, the like not lazier you are, but like you're just not going to get as much out of it.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
It's so wrong. Like, yeah, looking back now, I'm like, oh wow, I just wish I could teach my younger self so much, but I guess we got to live, we live and we learn. But no, you're right. I actually do still see this in other people. Like I was going to a group gym for a while, and like I was just taking my time to rest in between sets and stuff. And he's like, resting's cheating, like keep going. I'm like, no, bro.
Wait, did a coach say that?
No, not the coach. God. It was just someone else there, and I'm like, you're gonna burn out in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. I still see this sometimes where like we have people who will be like training really hard and they'll purposely skip their rest in their training, or they'll purposely like just do extra things in between the rest because they feel like the more they do, the better. And it's actually just totally the opposite. You're actually going to get way less out of it when you do that.
Also, if you're training at the right intensity, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You really need the rest, depending on the workout, but it depends.
You shouldn't
majority of the
need
time.
the rest.
You shouldn't need the extra stuff.
Oh yeah,
is what I meant to say.
Yeah, like you should be fucked.
You should be fucked. There's no way after a heavy set of, let's say, hip thrust, I'm not doing any fucking lunges in between that.
Yeah,
unless it's programmed.
Yeah, but even
liar.
Liar. I call bullshit on that.
You're right.
That wouldn't happen.
Supersets aren't my thing.
But also on that as well, you know, I still hear now girls that are doing like 2.5 hour gym leg days.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, how long do you train? And they're like, it's a flex. Oh, I train for 2 hours and I do legs. Honey, if you can do that. Did I just say honey?
Yeah. I was like, I've never heard you say that.
I don't say honey. Anyway, there was a bit of sass coming, but I'm gonna put that to bed because that's not my personality. Anywho, that was so weird. Left field. But it's just like, if you can do a 2 hour leg day, I promise you are not doing it properly, because you should not be able to keep that level of intensity up that you need to get the most out of your training and do it consistently for 2 hours. Even if you're doing strength training and you've got like 3 minutes between sets, actually then the session should arguably be shorter because you're putting so much tension on the nervous system. But I think people just think if I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and do more exercises, that's more volume, I'll get more out of it. But actually, like, guys, stick to 4 to 6 exercises. I would even say 6 is too many. And I would be looking at like loading that shit up, focusing on your form and technique, doing as much as you can. And by the end of that 45 minutes to an hour, like, you should be toast. You should be done.
I want to talk about this in terms of running. Younger me and a lot of people still push themselves to the absolute max every single session. So can relate from myself. I just thought you had to run as hard as possible for as long as possible, and that was the only way. And it's come up in like 2 conversations literally in this past week of people on Instagram I've like reached out to, and that's kind of why I shared the post yesterday, because one of them asked me about that, and when I sent him that photo, he was like, I'm like only running in zone 4 to 5. I was like, no,
Yeah.
like that is reserved for like intervals only.
Yeah. This is interesting because I actually had on my list here just going for a 10K run. And when I say that, I mean like, oh, I'm just going to go for a 10K run. And I'd like not run before at all. And I think I see that often where people just one day wake up and they're like, I'm going to be a runner. And then they just happen to go and do 10Ks, or they happen to go and do their first 5Ks, but it is going as hard as you possibly can. And then people go, running is really hard. Running sucks. I hate running. And it's like, well, coming from somebody who personally doesn't really love running, I've actually learned that it's not that I didn't like running or that I found it super duper hard. It was that I wasn't giving myself the ability to learn how to run properly and efficiently. So I was just like going balls to wall every single run. And, you know, I used to do, you know, if I would do 5 or 6Ks, by the end of that first kilometer, I was fucked. And then I was like, oh, how am I going to do the rest? And then it would start out as you would almost be like sprinting, jogging, and then like almost walking by the end of it, because I thought you couldn't maintain your effort for that long. But actually it was that I hadn't built my fitness to that yet. I see that happen all the time.
All the time. And that's exactly what happened to me on the first half. And so because I then hated running, I was like, how do people do marathons? This is ridiculous. And I literally stopped running for over 6 months. It wasn't until I started working with my coach and learned to enjoy running. And I remember my first like zone 2 run, or like aerobic run. And when I finished, I was like, wow. Oh, that felt so good. And then you recover quicker, you have more energy throughout the day. And yeah, I see it all happen all too often.
Yeah. Do you have another one?
Don't think I do.
Oh, cool. Crystal, do you have another one?
Good old
I mean,
list.
that's such a lie. Yeah, I definitely have more, but I just can't think of them.
No, that's cool. Because the only other one I had on my list was around ego lifting, but we've kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
I think, just the biggest thing with that is just making sure that you don't worry about what everyone else is doing and you lift properly, because your ego is going to be pretty hurt when you get injured.
Absolutely. Intermittent fasting when I was training of a morning. So I think we spoke on this on the other podcast, but that was a big mistake that I made because I wasn't seeing any progressions in my performance because I wasn't fueling myself. So yeah, I'd have, dinner, last meal, stop eating at like 7, train at 5 or 6 a.m. and not eat till 11.
I guess I didn't intermittent fast on purposely, but when I think back about when I was under eating, that would have been just something that I would have done, like without even calling it intermittent fasting. It's the same sort of thing in the sense that I reckon I probably did the same thing too, but just didn't realize that that's what it was.
Yeah, it was through like the biohacking people. It was like intermittent fasting, bulletproof coffee, like all that shit.
Oh my God, yeah, with MCT oil.
Yeah.
Fuck, that takes me back. I did go through that stage.
Yep.
Yeah, only because when I was doing my course, the guy that was running the course, every morning he would have this like concoction he'd made. And it was like coffee, and he would call it like bulletproof. And he was like, oh, you put MCT oil and all this stuff. So I just thought that was the go, and I started doing it. That didn't last long.
No, yeah, I remember trying it, and like for a while, like it worked because it suppressed my hunger. But
for what purpose?
Exactly.
If you're not eating, you're already starving anyway.
Yeah, that was a silly time in my life. One of the ones I wrote down kind of intertwines with what we already spoke about. Like I had too many goals that weren't smart. Like they weren't specific. They weren't measurable. I wasn't sticking to a program for a set amount of time. I was just changing. I was going into the gym, did whatever I felt like.
Yeah.
So
Guilty.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that kind of brings its own point too, though. Did you see I just bit my lip? Ow, that really hurt. Roberta's like staring at me. Roberta's staring at me and I'm like, ow, that hurt as I talk.
I didn't see.
Oh, well, I just dobbed myself in there, didn't I? Yeah, I think that's can be kind of its own point though, in the sense of issue is that if you have too many goals at once. And it was actually interesting that this is coming up because I have somebody right now who's joined our challenge, which starts on Monday. And I was just sending her startup video today. And I put my foot down a little bit because when she started, when she signed up, she had sent me through like all of the things she's currently doing. And so she was very clear on the fact that she's working with another strength coach right now for 3 sessions a week. And then she gave me the split of what she's doing. On top of that, she's also doing a high rocks session each week. And then she's also on top of that doing 2 runs a week and wants to get better at her long runs, but she also wants to incorporate intervals. And then on her form, she said that she wanted to do the shred option, but then came back to me and was like, I really want to work on my paces, so maybe I should do the hybrid option. And so you can imagine my fucking brain. I'm like, girl, what do you want? So I put my foot down today and I sent her startup video and I just made it like obviously very clear that, look, I don't think that you know what you want. And we really need to work out one specific goal. And I get it. I get wanting to be doing a bit of everything, but I think it comes back to having structure and having the right structure. So I actually just said to her, look, I know you're working with another coach. I'm trying to understand what the purpose of you joining the challenge is. If you're already doing something else, this is how I would structure. Oh, and by the way, she's a coach. So there's no shade on that at all. I think everyone starts somewhere and everyone is got different experience when it comes to coaching and like their experience in fitness and their education. And like, I actually love it. I love this situation because now I have another coach in my space that can learn from me. So this is great. But my point is I basically laid it out for her and I said, look, I know you asked me not to program your strength days because you've already got that. I said, however, I've done it anyway, because even if you don't follow this specifically, hopefully you can understand how I've done it and take it on board as feedback as to how you can maybe tweak some of the stuff you're currently doing. And then I structured that in with her runs, and I was very educational on the fact that, look, we can't just have a goal to do everything because nothing's complementing each other, and this is going to be risk of injury. It's going to be risk that you're going to end up not seeing any progress. And then I also mentioned that I've started her on maintenance calories because shredding right now is probably not the right option. And the funny thing is, like, I see this happen with people all the time. They get so caught up in wanting to do a bit of everything, and then it just becomes a world of pain because you're not seeing any progress. But this actually happened this morning. So I just thought that was interesting to touch on as well, because I think so many people get stuck on what's my goal. And I mean, I've done it. There's no shade at all because I've done it too, where I've like wanted to do everything. But I think you've just got to learn to pick one thing and stick to that and get that right first. And I think going into phases of what your focuses are. Yeah,
absolutely. As we said before, like mistakes, we all learn from them, and I wouldn't take back anything that I've done. So other people are still making mistakes, and that's okay. And I just hope they're listening to this, and so they can save themselves some time.
Yeah, and by the way, we still make mistakes all the time. Like I reckon that we still make mistakes every single time that we, like, if we look back on this conversation, I reckon in another 12 months we'll go, oh my God, look at all the mistakes we've made now. But it's just the more that you can become aware of those things and learn from them. And then also, I love this conversation because the amount of people that are either making these mistakes currently that can learn from this, or alternatively can go, oh yeah, I've done that, and have that realization that it's not just you. Because you do get caught up thinking like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I used to think that.
Yeah. You can get in your own head or like not want to talk to other people about it because like you think you know best.
Or your ego comes in and you're like, I don't want them to know that I did that. You know, I've done that too.
I've just thought of one last mistake that I did do. It was like right when I first started going into the gym, and obviously I had no direction as to where I was going. So I would buy those booty building programs. And I remember thinking like, I don't know how my brain didn't comprehend this, but I would see these girls and they would be like, obviously like it would be majority influencers, and they would they would take photos more so showing their glute gains and things like that. And that was the focus point. So I assumed that if I did this program, I would look exactly like this person. And that's how I thought, like, I didn't realize, like, hey, my body's completely not that person. There's no way I'm going to look like that person. So I get really discouraged when I start training, and obviously didn't do the correct nutrition part, but I would get so discouraged and I would never finish the programs because I would look at their photos all the time and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't look like that. Like, how come? Like, I'm doing their program, but I don't look like her.
Yeah. It's like into our last podcast episode about comparison.
Yeah. And it just made me think of that. I was like, oh my God, like, how I just didn't compute that I'm not that person. Like, I have a completely different body structure to that person.
Yeah, well, that was 2 points that kind of came to mind as you were talking. Is the first one is the fact that, like, everyone's body composition is so different and their makeup. I mean, if we look at just the three of us sitting here, 3 completely different ends of the spectrum. Like, we have, you know, completely different body types, and I think even if we did the exact same program, there is no way we would get the same result. There's just no way.
And but 18-year-old me would never understand that. I'd be like, oh, like, Steph's really, like, you know, she's got long legs and I want to look like that, but, like, I don't look like that.
Yeah, you can't just train yourself to grow an extra foot.
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but me, like, I was just so, like, built up in, like, that whole, like, oh, like, I want to look like this person.
Yeah. But then the other point that I came to mind with that one as well, just quickly, is that I also just thought about the times where, as you said, you didn't finish the program. I wouldn't finish a program because, like, the mistake that I made was thinking that things were going to happen quicker than they actually do. And so I wouldn't follow through for long enough because I would see, you know, a 6-week or an 8-week program and assume that by the end of that, I'm going to look so much different. And then when you actually sit down and recognize that this process takes a lot longer than you want it to, and it takes a lot longer than you probably think it will, but being committed to the process regardless, rather than getting 6 to 8 weeks in, deciding that nothing looks any different and then throwing in the towel. So I went through a really long period where I would get so inconsistent because I wasn't focused on the end result being a journey and rather just wanting a quick fix now.
One last point that also came to my head about the comparison thing is I used to think that, like, you had to be smaller to be a runner, and I thought like you had to be lighter to be a runner, like you just be as light as possible kind of thing. So I was always constantly trying to, like, lose weight or be smaller in order to improve my running, and, like, obviously that's so wrong. And, like, now I guess, like, I'm the heaviest I've been, but I've just, like, hit my biggest PB ever because I'm actually doing the strength work and, like, fueling myself well. Yeah. So I think that was it. And it has come up with clients as well where they have said that, where they're like, oh, I feel too heavy to be a runner. I'm like, no, like, literally anyone can be a runner. Sure, if you're, like, severe, like, quite overweight, it can be more impact on your joints. But if you're doing the strength work to support your joints and your muscles around it, then you're fine.
Yeah, I actually remember you told me this a little while ago. I don't remember which marathon it was that you did, but you said something about you were running and you looked at yourself and thought, God, I feel, you said something about your legs and you said, I feel like I'm too muscular to run, I think was the words you said.
It was, no, my cousin actually made that comment to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so my cousin said to me once, I love him to bits, I know he didn't mean it in any bad way, but he was like surprised that I'm a runner for how muscly I am. And so that it did get in my head at the time because I was like, oh, like, should I not look like this?
Because I mean, when you do look at a lot of marathon runners, a lot of them are they're skin and bone. But I mean, I think as well, again, it comes back to what line are you coming from? Like, what's your experience? What's your history in training and nutrition? And also, you don't have to be like that just because they are.
No, like, I really want to get rid of the stigma of, like, built for running. I think that's a really stupid term because, like, if we look at that statement, I'm not built for running. Like, I find running really hard, but that's why I do the work to make it as efficient and feel better.
Yeah, so I guess that's a great point is, you know, yes, to a degree, genetics do play a role in the sense that some people are, like, they have the perfect body composition or body type for a particular sport. And we see it all the time. Like, a really bland example is like a basketballer. You know, if you're 3 foot, you're not going to be a basketballer. It's just simple things like sometimes you are made, like, you're actually made for a specific sport, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be good at it. And it doesn't mean that other people can't be either. And I think just remembering that it's not, you know, what's that that quote? It says something, I'm going to butcher this, but something along the lines of when you work harder than the people that are born to do something, you're going to get further ahead than them. Do you know that quote? It's like...
Yeah, I've heard that more during, like, school.
Yeah, like, something about, like, success. When people fail to work hard, you get more successful.
Yeah, like, hard work outweighs talent.
Yeah, something that. So, something like that. Yeah, and basically my point is, though, that you can actually do anything if you put the work in. And it's not about where other people are. It's just about knowing that you also could do that too. So I can understand how that got in your head, but I'm really glad that you didn't let it stay there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought this was really great. I liked this chat.
That was fun.
Yeah, cool. Well, I am really happy that we all could agree that a lot of the stuff that we've done is very similar. And the reason that I'm happy we could agree is because it's all stuff that we've learnt from. And things.
It also makes me think that it's probably heaps of other people who have also thought this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to touch on because I just don't think it's spoken about enough. So it hopefully kind of highlighting some of our mistakes helps other people realize what theirs are too, and maybe work towards a little bit of a happier or healthier alternative to their health and fitness. So really good.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Chat to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.